Massive F1 news today from the FIA announcing the discovery of a front bib device on an unnamed team's car that was being investigated, which turned out to be Red Bull when they admitted to it a few hours later after headlines initially broke. We also got news about the fastest lap point, brakes under the new regulations in 2026, as well as rookie driver time increasing. So let's get into it right away with this Red Bull front bib story. So if you're not familiar with the front bib, here's the headline from Motorsport. Red Bull admits front bib device exists, but plan agreed with FIA, which I don't know if that's English. Plan agreed with FIA. They've been saying that all day, which is weird. But here's the front bib. So it's essentially just this. It's a very frontmost piece on the front of the car, below the floor or on the floor, in the front of the plank underneath the car. So it's also called the T tray. Essentially, it's a splitter that's used on the car's floor just below the front axle. It's essentially just providing a mounting point for the plank that runs underneath. It then gets tested after the race, and if it's too low, then people get disqualified. That's happened before. Um, so what happened was teams had reported that something about the front bib of a team. They said unnamed originally, but essentially what was happening was they were saying that whoever this team was, which was Red Bull, was changing the ride height of this front part of their floor during Parc Ferme between qualifying and the race. So essentially, the initial allegation I saw was that they had a device in the cockpit that the driver could access and at any point lower the floor height. That was false. So that was the initial report. After that, that Red Bull came out and clarified and said that this device does exist, but after the car is fully built and put together, it cannot be changed. So, from my understanding of that, this is just some device that they added. Again, this is my understanding, but for their convenience, so that they could easily lower that front bib height, that ride height in the very front there where it's mounted, instead of having to do whatever the normal, mechanical shit would have to be to lower it. They probably added some kind of mechanism to automatically lower it by the click of a button, but they said once the car is built and put together, which would happen before Parc Ferme and before qualifying, the car's not rebuilt between qualifying and the race. If it is, then obviously you're starting from the pits. So if that's the case, then it's just nothing. There's really no point to talk about it. But obviously, the allegation started. They said unnamed team, and it was probably a good idea for Red Bull to come out and just take it head on and clarify, because otherwise people are just going to say this dumb shit like, oh, they can change it into every turn and throughout the track they can change it up, and like, no, that's definitely not what's happening. Racing News 365 came out with an article where I guess they spoke to Max Verstappen, one of their correspondents, and asked him about this. He responded when they asked him what was going on. He said, "Nothing. I mean, it's open source, right? Everyone can see it. For us, it was just an easy tool. When the parts were off, it was easy to adjust. But once the whole car is built together, you can't touch it. So for us, it doesn't change. When I read it, I was thinking about other teams doing it, and then I found out it was related to our team. We never mentioned it in briefing, so it's just an easier tool to adjust that." Asked of Verstappen whether it had any impact on performance, he succinctly said no. So obviously, again, it was just a tool that they could use to easily adjust that height while the car was being worked on, not during Parc Ferme like the initial rumor was. So, obviously the rumor comes out, it's ridiculous, and then they have to backtrack and backtrack. So you got kind of have to wait and see what happens first. And again, they clarified that. So this headline again, Red Bull and FIA agree plan. I don't know why they keep saying agree plan. What the fuck English is that? But anyway, agree plan after bib trick uncovered. I don't know if it's much of a trick, but Red Bull said or sorry, the FIA said, yes, it exists, although it is inaccessible once the car is fully assembled and ready to run. So that would make it irrelevant. In numerous correspondence we have with the FIA, this part came up, and we have agreed a plan going forward. Again, that's not English, but anyway. Um, while we have not received any indication of any team employing such a system, the FIA remains vigilant. Yada 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 bullshit. So again, from my understanding of this, that just means that they added some mechanism to easily lower this front bib, this T tray, instead of having to do whatever they would have to do before that. Whatever normal teams have to do to move it up and down, they added some kind of mechanism for themselves to make it easier. If it doesn't change during the race or whatever, that's just a nothing burger. They're just yapping. You know what I mean? It would be interesting, and maybe I'll have to go back through some race clips and maybe see if we can find some images between qualifying and the race in certain turns of a track and same camera angles, and maybe compare it. Maybe that'll be something for the off season, because that'll be quite a bit of research. But that's all this is. It sounded like it was going to be some big deal, and obviously people were guessing who it was going to be. Red Bull came out and took it head on, and as long as they're not lying, then there's really nothing to see here. So let's move on to the rest of the news. The other main news was that as of 2025, the fastest lap point is going to be scrapped and will not be a thing anymore. The fastest lap came around back in 2019, and now it's gone 6 years later. So kind of funny that it comes right after the whole Daniel Ricciardo fastest lap shit. Just kind of fun. I know the meeting was already planned and this and that, and they're probably going to talk about it anyway, but it just so happens that it happens right after that. Now they're like, yeah, no more fastest lap. I don't know. Probably no correlation there. Probably just timing. But the F1 article says the fastest lap bonus point is to be dropped from the 2025 season, which I assume that means before it and not after it. They approved some small changes to the rule set. The only other change that I saw was that they have to increase in requirements for fielding a younger driver during free practice from once per season to twice. So I thought that we've seen them more. I thought that it was already more than once per year they had to get a free practice session, but maybe we've just been seeing them do that more. I feel like Doohan's had at least two, maybe, but he's already going to be racing next year. Anyway, that's really the only changes. The only other thing is they announced some updates to the braking, so they're going to allow a lot of braking changes, and obviously the car is going to be a lot different, aerodynamically and with the power in it. So the new Brembo's caliper design could be a feature for pad fastening instead of the current dual pad fastening. So that would be that'll be interesting. It'll add a new aspect because obviously, if teams don't adapt to the quad pad, then they're probably going to be at a disadvantage. And if they maybe design it the wrong way or whatever, so that'll add a new little bit of a new bit of a twist into the new regulations, as well as these teams already having to somehow come in underweight for this car and everything else going on with it. All there's been is complaints, but going to be a different braking system. They're going to take away the fastest lap point next season. I don't really know why. I don't really get that. I kind of like the incentive, but on the same hand, I do understand that there are a lot of situations where teams like V Carb that aren't even they were like not even midfield at that point. They can steal a point just because they can run it at the end of the race on a track that's fully rubbered in and stuff, and put fresh tires on for one lap and just run a fastest lap. Obviously, that doesn't guarantee you it. You still have to have a really quick lap, which Ricardo obviously did, but I'd love to know why they got rid of it. I don't understand why mess with it. You just implemented it only a couple years ago. Now you're already getting rid of it. I don't really understand that, but um yeah, that's it. Kind of a big day. It seemed like it was going to be a big day of drama with this whole thing, and it came out in the morning that this was the initial rumor. It's rumored that a team in the paddock has figured out how to adjust bib height even after qualifying when Parc Ferme rules are in effect. This means ride height can be changed after qualifying. Da da da. That's not what's happening. They came out. They said that's obviously not what's happening. Again, unless the FIA is lying and Red Bull is lying, then I guess you have to take them at their word, right? And that's it. Got the fastest lap going. New drivers gonna have to get more free practice time and new braking for the new cars. Should be exciting. Should be a really good weekend. I will be here for the qualifying and the sprint race live, so come join me for that. Let me know what you think down in the comments about this whole T-tray front bib bullshit. I don't really think it's anything, but let me know. And I'll be back. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe. I'll be back. Peace.